Welcome back to TradTalk podcast, this time in English. Today we're going to have some episodes recorded in English, which will be good, something interesting and different from our usual interviews in Portuguese. Today we are at Abrates Conference, the 10th Abrates Conference. It starts today, and I will take the chance to interview some very nice people, including Tony Rosado. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here in São Paulo for this chat.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to have you here. I hope you're enjoying Brazil this time.
I am very much.
Okay,
yes.
You've been here before, right?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Okay, good. So yeah, that's it. So Tony is my first interviewee today, this morning in São Paulo. Well, a bit about Tony then, if you don't know him yet. Tony is the U.S. State Department conference-level freelance interpreter. He is also a court interpreter certified by the U.S. government. He's attorney from Escuela Libre de Derecho in Mexico City. He works internationally as a conference interpreter with top-level politicians, celebrities, athletes, and entrepreneurs. He is the author of 2 books on court interpreting. He has a blog called The Professional Interpreter. And last but not least, he's a teacher and trainer of interpreters. So, you do quite a lot of things, Tony. Could you talk a bit more about yourself?
Yes, I do. I do quite a few things because everything that has to do with the profession of interpreting is really my passion. And it would be very difficult for me to pick just one field and stay there. I think that it's all globally encompassed, and that you need to, if you want to work for the profession, try to do several things. For example, I like to train young people so that they can excel as interpreters. We want people who have the talent to interpret to stay in the field and not to try it and for whatever reason then leave, because we would lose very important human capital doing that. So that's why the training, that's why the teaching. On the other hand, because I cannot be everywhere and because there's a lot of new people coming up, especially in the Americas, for court interpreting because of the change on the judiciary systems in a lot of the Latin American countries that are going from written system to oral system, well, the need for interpretation is becoming more and more and more important. Moreover, with all the migration and the globalization, business from people from Asia and from Europe and from Africa are coming to the Americas. And of course, when people do business in one country, you know that the next thing that will happen is that those people are going to be suing each other in that country. So that's the reason why I decided to write my 2 manuals for court interpreting. One of them in Spanish, it really describes the process of the Mexican system, which was the first fully implemented system that followed the American legal system. So it was important from the terminology point of view, from the procedural point of view, and I wrote it in collaboration with another 2 very good friends of mine. One of them a magistrate from the highest electoral court in Mexico, and the other one from the president of the Mexican Sign Language Interpreters Association. So that book is, as far as I know, the only court interpreting book that covers both the spoken and the sign language. And then my book in English, which was written just by myself, really describes the legal system of the United States and takes the new interpreter by the hand throughout the process, explaining the law, explaining the procedure, explaining what is expected from the interpreter at every one of the stages, and the business aspect also of freelance court interpreting. And then finally, because you need to make a living, because these other things are very, very good and exciting, but that's not really what makes you the money that allows me to be traveling all over the place to do these things, I have to work as an interpreter. And I've been very fortunate and very lucky in my career that I have met a lot of people that have helped me out and that have allowed me to get to where I am right now, which is a very comfortable position. After all these years, I am able to really pick and choose the assignments I want to do, where and with whom I want to work, and that's what I do for a living, interpreting at the level and with the type of situations and cases and people that I want to work and learn from.
Okay, so what language are the books you wrote for general interpreters, or are they language-based?
Of course, they are language-based because of the terminology part, but then the other part, the part that talks about the techniques and about the procedure and all that, they are not language-based. They are really legal system-based. In other words, if you are in a country where they have the written legal system, my books probably wouldn't help you a lot. For that, really, what the system uses is legal court translators, not so much interpreters. But if you're from any country that follows the oral proceedings, either the ones that come from the English-British tradition, like the case of the United States, or and Mexico in Latin America, or the ones that come from the German system, like the case of Chile in Latin America, the book would work for you because it talks about what the interpreter does. Now, of course, the terminology, that's very language-specific, and actually is very country-specific, because even the legal terminology in American English differs from the one in British legal system or in the Australian legal system, for example.
Mm-hmm. Good. And something basic, let's take a step back. Where are you from and where do you live right now? Okay, well, where I am from is a very interesting thing. I was born in Mexico City, but I have lived just about all over the place during my life. I have lived in Europe, in the UK, I have lived in Mexico, I have lived in Japan, I have lived in many places within the United States, but my home base and the place that I call home and the city that I really love is Chicago, because Chicago is in the center of the United States. It has the busiest airport in the world, and if you work as an interpreter, you really need a good airport that has you one flight away from any assignment, whether it's in Africa or in Europe or in South America, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm, great. And so you work with both English and Spanish? I do work with English and Spanish, yes. Okay, good. And you're going to talk here, you're going to be a speaker here at the 10th Abrates Conference, and you're going to talk about the business side of being an interpreter. Yes. Can you talk a bit more about that? Yes, I think that it's very important to address all the business aspects of the profession, especially for the freelancers, but also for those interpreters that work as staff for international organizations, government agencies, of major corporations. Why is that? Because every day I run into these wonderful, really capable colleagues who just came out of college, or the ones that are self-made, that have practiced for so many years, and their techniques are impeccable, the way that they conduct themselves in the booth are impeccable, but the problem is that they do not have the savvy part as far as business, and for that reason they are struggling. They struggle because they don't negotiate with the agencies or with the service provider. They are struggling because they don't know how to plan for their assignment and how to charge for the assignment. They don't know what to factor in, what to take into account, what value they have to attribute to their formal education, to their practical experience, to the distance they have to travel to go to work, and so on and so forth. So I think that that's a very important piece that a lot of colleagues are missing, and some of us are really trying to raise this issue so that our colleagues can basically know what they do, so they can explain it to their clients. Second, so that our colleagues know what they are worth, so that they can charge accordingly, because my goal is that interpreters make not enough money to survive. That's not what I would like to see. I want my colleagues to make a lot of money, to make the money they need to make to have the lifestyle they choose. Whether their lifestyle is to go and live in a cabin in the middle of the woods, or to drive a Ferrari and have their private jet. What I want is people to be able to charge what they fairly should deserve. Good, good. That's great. That's something that is traditionally missing in any education, yes, if you say. It's both a problem in interpreting and in translator. That's correct. As a teacher and trainer of interpreters, do you try to focus on this business side as well, or you cannot?
Well, I do both. Of course, when I teach interpreting and when I teach other things, research and terminology and all that, you focus on that. And there's a lot of other very talented people that are doing the same thing all over the world. But when it comes to the business part, there's a lot of talented people doing it, but it's much less people than the ones that are doing everything else. Starting with the fact that most universities and colleges either just ignore the subject or they barely touch upon the surface of the subject, and that's it. So my emphasis really is on this part, because in an ideal world, I want interpreters to, first of all, see themselves, and second, be perceived by others as the real true professionals that they are. Because interpreters and translators should be considered at the same level that the general population sees a medical doctor or an attorney or an engineer, and not like something lower, not like somebody that just happens to be bilingual or multilingual, and because of that, hey, they can interpret, they can translate, because we all know that that is not the case. A lot of people that you know are bilingual or trilingual, and those people cannot interpret simultaneously or consecutively, and those people could never translate a book or translate a legal document or a contract either.
That is very interesting, because usually I'm also in favor of talking business to translators and interpreters. I'm a translator, so I usually talk to translators because that's my world.
Yes.
And I think that it starts with ourselves. We usually complain about people not thinking that we are professionals, but I think that it starts with ourselves. If we behave, for starters, if we behave as a professional, then people will see us as professionals, right? True. I think it's like a two-way street, but it has to start with us, and we have to behave and do things professionally as a real entrepreneur to be seen as one, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that is why you have to be able and willing to educate your clients, so that the clients get to the point that they see the interpreter or the translator as an investment, not as an expense. Because if you really think about it, a client that wants to go overseas and wants to globalize their trade, they just cannot do it if they remain monolingual. It doesn't matter what language you speak. Let's say that the business is in China. Yeah, they can have a lot of customers, but they will all be from the same country, because they cannot expand beyond their borders because they have the language barrier. So when you look at it that way, it's like trying to build a building without having the materials. Well, you cannot go global without having the materials. In this case, the interpreters for the negotiations and the discussions and the debates, and the translators for all the documents that are the result of those negotiations. So the client has to see you always as an investment, and that's what we have to work on, getting them to understand what we do, so they can value you, they can appreciate you, and they know that you're a part of the team and not just this bothersome thing that they have to go through and that is going to cost them money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as you can see, Tony knows how to talk about all subjects, pretty much about interpreting. And we saw each other in at the ITI conference this month, right, Tony? Yeah, because we were still on the 31st. Yes, in the beginning of this month, in May, I was in Sheffield, in the UK. We were in Sheffield in the UK, and we attended the ITI conference, and Tony spoke there, and he talked about remote simultaneous interpreting. Could you talk a bit more about that? Maybe talking specifically, explaining what it is for those who don't know yet what it is, and then developing on what you talked about it.
Great. Yeah, we were in Sheffield in the UK earlier this month, and I was again talking to this group of interpreters, because for the first time ever, that conference had a track totally devoted to interpreting, and we wanted to support that, and it came out really, really good, and I think it's going to continue every 2 years at the ITI conference. That's a plug so that people know that we are watching and we want it there every 2 years. But anyway, I was talking about the business aspect again, and what interpreters should set as the value for the different things they do. And one thing that came up, of course, because that's a topic that everybody's talking about all over the world, is the remote simultaneous interpreting. What is this? Well, there's now a lot of different platforms, because of technology, that allow a person or a group of people to hold a meeting or a conference or a negotiation in one part of the world, while the interpreters that are working with that person are geographically located somewhere else. Depending on the type of interpreting, this could be something as simple as a speakerphone for some telephone interpreting, or it could be just a tablet or an iPad for what they call I think they call it video interpreting or video remote interpreting, where they work consecutively, and they do that a lot in hospitals, in jails and places like that. Or it could be the more sophisticated remote simultaneous interpreting that is used in conferences, in high-level summits and places like that, where people are meeting in one place and the interpreters are working from remote locations. Sometimes all the different booths in the same location, or sometimes the booths even in different locations depending on the language. And finally, sometimes with the two interpreters, instead of being in the same booth or in the same virtual booth, they are in even different countries or even in different times. One of them might be at 10 o'clock in the morning and the other one at 10 at night, and they're working together. I really never talk about the technological part. Number one, because I don't know that much, and I think that that should be left to the computer and software engineers, not to us interpreters, because we would be just like somebody talking about football without playing football.
Yeah.
But the things that we really know about, which is the interpreting aspect and how that impacts our profession, is what I usually talk about. And here the controversy has really been, look, a lot of these agencies and some of these companies that are opting for doing this kind of interpreting, long distance, remote, simultaneous, are trying to get interpreters to work for less money and from their homes. The argument is you don't have to travel, you don't have to go away from home, so it's very convenient for you. You don't have downtime while you're waiting, so if you're going to work 8 hours, we should pay you for those 8 hours, and that's it. In video remote interpreting, it's even worse, because they're telling people we're going to pay you by the minute or by the hour, and because you work 15 minutes, we'll pay you, because we're good people, half an hour. Nobody can live, you know, with a half an hour pay.
Yeah.
So that's not very good. Some other companies, the better ones and the ones that usually handle the best assignments and hire the better known interpreters in all languages, they are approaching this as, look, we're going to pay you the same amount of money as if you were physically in a booth where the assignment is taking place. So you're not at the venue, but you will make the same amount of money because your job is the same. Interpreting is the same effort. To us, it's more convenient, these companies would say, because we are not saving on what we pay to the interpreter, but we are saving on expenses. Instead of flying the interpreters to the conference, paying for their hotels, their per diem, ground transportation, and all that, instead of paying for installing the booths and having the technicians on site and all that, we're going to do this remotely, so all we have to pay is very little as expenses, and that's where our savings are. That's where our bigger profit comes from. And most of our colleagues are going along with this, provided that that company is a serious company, and there's 2 or 3 of them that are serious, and allow you to go in the place where you live or in the city nearby your home to a virtual booth where you are together with another colleague working from there in the same room at the same place with the technological support, both human and equipment, from the platform developer or from the agency, so you don't have to worry about anything but interpreting and not all these other problems like the companies that want you to work from home. What if the speed of the internet is not the correct one? Yeah. Or what if this is a great interpreter, but she just happens to live in one of those countries where electricity is not that reliable? What are you going to do? How can you explain to somebody that is meeting in Paris that in X country, sometimes there's no electric power when they are meeting there, and all of a sudden there's no more interpretation? I think that that's the right approach, but I go one step forward, one step farther ahead, looking up for the interpreter interests, and this is what we were discussing in the UK at the beginning of the month. And basically what I am saying is that interpreters that work from home, from the studio, at their home city, at their hometown, should not just be paid the same as if they were in the booth at the place where the conference takes place, but they should be paid even more, because what you make when you are at the conference is what you command for the tasks of interpreting. When you're working remotely, you have to take care of these other additional tasks on top of everything else, and therefore, unless they pay you more, then you are making less money from interpreting, because now, for more work, same pay. To me, more work, same pay doesn't mean, you know, the right amount that you deserve.
Yeah.
You are doing all this other work, you have this keyboarding that you're talking to your booth mate, or you're communicating with technician, with another booth, with the venue, you're switching screens to see the PowerPoint that is on stage, or to see the audience, or to see the speaker, and so forth. And these are additional things that you do not have to do when you are in the booth. And that can take you away from the job that you do unless you have a specific training. Because it's not true that remote simultaneous interpreting is simultaneous conference interpreting. It's a different field. It's a totally different animal. It requires of many other things that the other one doesn't. You have to deal with the time delay, with the sound coming in from another part of the world, and so on. So I think that interpreters should be remunerated accordingly, and for that reason, you should make more money. The agency, the platform developer, the event organizer would still come way ahead, because even if they have to pay more to the interpreters, it's going to be much less than airfare, hotel, per diem, ground transportation, internet access, etc. that they would have to pay if they fly a team of 60 interpreters to where the event is taking place. Mm-hmm. So that's what we were talking about in Sheffield, and that's what we are talking about constantly, and also the legal consequences. If you dare to work from home, and I really do not recommend that. I think we should go to a place, like I said, where you're with your booth mate and there's a technician. But if you were to decide to go ahead and work from home and do the conference from there, you need to be very careful, and you need to write a specific contract for liability reasons. You gotta make sure that later on you're not going to end up being liable because of the high-speed internet wasn't really that high speed, or because the electric failure, or because something happened that you as an interpreter don't know how to fix. Because troubleshooting is for technicians, it's not for interpreters. Yeah. If you're in the venue and the equipment doesn't work, and it's a very important event, you can always get out of the booth, go downstairs and do consecutive interpreting while the technician takes care of it. Yeah. But if you're at home, you don't have anybody else there, especially if the conference is happening in Asia and you are in the Americas and you are 10, 12, 14 hours time difference. You know, there's not going to be a technician that you can call at 3 in the morning that is going to take care of this in 2 or 5 minutes. So you have to be very careful. There's all kinds of liability issues there, and you have to protect yourself. It doesn't matter that the platform developers are protected in their contract. It doesn't matter if the agency is protected, because those contracts could be throwing the interpreters under the bus. So you have to make sure that you have the right contract, that it has been reviewed by an attorney, and that only then, if you're willing to take those chances and to have that unbelievable extra stress accumulated that maybe this won't work, then you'll do it. I'm still against it, because who is going to guarantee me, if I just happen to be working at 11 o'clock in the morning at my house, that my next door neighbor is not going to decide to mow the lawn at that time? Or who's going to guarantee me that the dog is not going to start barking, or the baby is going to start crying, or the phone is going to ring, or whatever might be the case? It's not the same. You're not controlling the environment, and that's why I advise against doing that. But if you're going to do, what I tell people is, make sure that the contract covers all those situations, so that tomorrow you don't end up being the bad guy.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I've never thought of that. Those were very good points. Yeah. Since I'm not from interpreting, I thought that was amazing. I never thought of that before. There are so many details you have to think about, right? Yes. It's not that simple. You just think, okay, you're working remotely, and then, okay, you're saving money because you're not traveling, and you like you don't get tired, you don't lose time, but it's not as simple as that, right?
No, it's very, very complex. And again, I'm not talking about the technological problems. I think that the technology is getting to be so good that really you can hear most of the time and it's very clear. You can see most of the time and it's very clear. I'm talking about the good platforms. So that's every day less and less of an issue. But all these other things that have nothing to do with technology, they have to do with the work product of the interpreter or with the environment for those that are not working from a studio. They are very real problems that you have to take into consideration.
Yeah. And that you cannot control sometimes, right? You can predict some of them, but not all of them.
That's right. And also, I know that we are all professionals, but if you and I are working in the booth, sitting next to each other, I know that if I'm having a coughing attack, you can just grab the microphone and start interpreting while I drink some water or take a cough drop or whatever. But if I am working from Chicago and you're working from São Paulo and you're not next to me, I am not always sure that if I start coughing, you're going to take over, because maybe since those were my 30 minutes that I'm working, maybe at that point you went to do something else, or you're answering the phone, or you're taking care of a child, or you're whatever it might be the case.
Yeah.
So it is not the same, and I worry about all those things.
Yeah, those are very good points. Thank you very much, Tony. That was a very interesting conversation. Thank you very much. And I'll put the links to Tony social media channels, to his blog as well, The Professional Interpreter, so that if you are an interpreter and you are interested in interpreting somehow, you can follow him, because he's all the time talking about this topic in a very good way. So I recommend that you follow him, okay? Thank you very much, Tony.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed the conference and your stay in São Paulo.
I sure will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for listening, and see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.